So I feel like Colossus and Protoss don't do enough for this deck in particular to go ahead and make it into the actual, make the cut. Or was he wrong? So first things first, if you just want to look at the deck list, feel free to skip to the time in the screen right now. Alright, so editing Edwin here. I originally was planning to make this just a deck list video, but I realized this is probably gonna be the last detailed sort of like breakdown scripted video that I have time to make, at least in English, before the cards release. So I pack a lot into this video. Your timeline below is gonna be your friend navigating through this video. And as far as the deck lists go, I showcase two different deck lists. In this video, one is gonna be a breakdown with explanations, and that one has the Colossus build. And the second one is gonna be the more up-to-date one, the one that I consider probably gonna be the future deck list that I'm gonna be testing out. The one that I consider is gonna be probably the strongest one of the direction the day is gonna be moving in the future. And I go over why I think that way. And last, I'll be streaming tomorrow on Sunday at 8 AM Central Time. If you want to stop by. I realize it's a little too late that I didn't mention that anywhere in the video. Alright, so now let's get back to the video. Thank you for watching, by the way. I think it's really cool to recognize how deck lists evolve through time, and how at the end of the day all these deck lists that we're showcasing are sort of like the end product of the communal process of improving a deck list that we have done. This thing here is the deck list that we have on one of the first, or if not the first deck list, was a showcase in Wrath of the King on January 5th. And you begin to see how they're utilizing the new cards, and some of the ratios have remained the same to this day. 3 Laras, Inheritance is a card that go back and forth with 2 notches, and for the most part, most people play 1 ulti-ray. And you will see I will showcase something similar in the first deck list I post on this channel. Some of the ratios will be the same, but you will notice we still are playing other cards that has found their way made to the side deck or out of the deck. Like Golds are here and Lars. Now when we evolve the deck list and I showcase my other deck list in February, you start to see other cards that are being included into the deck. We have both Prosperity now here. You begin to notice the deck list evolving and changing, sort of like optimizing small things here and there, streamline things. Now we are playing Appaloosa. Now we go to the next deck list I'm going to showcase here is, at least the first person I recall seeing doing this was Swisky on his channel, and is to play Access Core and the Nami Unicorn here. And that is another thing that is incorporated into sort of like the deck list that start becoming the things that we consider at least most optimal. So we go down here to and this is the CCT Shanghai deck list. This is the most successful tournament deck list for ritual base. This deck list was able to top, the player that was playing it was able to top top 4 on 1200 persons, 1200 players tournament in Shanghai. This was a couple of months ago too. We start seeing ideas like maybe playing one steed, you know. And small concepts like that get assimilated into what we consider to be maybe the most optimal way of playing, and ideas get put together. And at this time also more experimentation is done. I remember so other YouTubers also making videos, and each one of us puts their own twist into it. You know, Swisky has his own taste on why the deck list will be the most optimal. Same with other YouTubers like Shu and Moonlight that make a long strides in the right direction. We test stuff, we present what we think are the most optimal things that we can think about, and same with the line of plays. All of them has amazing content on their channel. And together, the deck list evolve. Even when we don't talk to each other directly about it, we see each other results, and we examine them and retest them. And here's the deck list that I showcased the last time. you're going to see some ideas in exploring here. Dropping bombs, maybe it's a good idea. Going into, and I remember Swisky's Fear from the talk to me about this, playing Anima. Maybe. You see, we grabbed the idea that we saw in the CCTs of playing one stage. We have the 2 cards that I saw in a Swisky video. And the decklist continues to evolve that way. And I just found this process to be really cool and very important to think about. When you look at a decklist and when you look at a deck, it's sort of like communal effort that at the end of the day end up optimizing a deck, especially on one as complex as this one, to be able to reach that next level. So without further ado, let's go ahead and look at the decklist. Alright, let's get started with the decklist. As I mentioned before, this is going to be a little briefer on why some cards are in the deck, and I'm going to be referencing my previous video here and there as I find fit throughout this one. We're going to focus mainly on the cards that are differences from my previous decklist and this one. So without further ado, let's get started with the main deck. Now, the first card we have here is Ritual Beast Tamer Elder, and we're going to play a place of Elder. I thought about cutting it back to 2 and maybe even 1 in the past, but Elder is one card that is not a combo by itself, but it's one of our 2 pieces for 2 card starters, and the best 2 card starters in the deck with that. So we definitely want to play a playset of Elder, just because it's so important to be able to see those combo pieces and those good starting hands. We have next a playset of Cannahawk here, and Cannahawk is the best 1 card starter in the deck, and only that is our other half for many 2 card starters. So Cannahawk and Elder will be a good 2 card starter. Cannahawk and Italy, Cannahawk and Spiritual Beast Melara, all of those are really good 2 card starters. Not to mention that Cannahawk by itself already made the Nemeses package live when it goes through. So that's another thing you want to keep in mind, especially in this version. You know, sometimes you have to banish something that's part of the Nemesis package. Sometimes you have to banish a card, and you are able to get Flag and Corridor live in your hand right away. So just something to keep in mind. Apart from Cannahawk, the other 1 card starter we have in the deck, and this will come to be the first change that we have between this decklist and my previous decklist, is that we have 2 Rampengus here, and we're playing 1 Noble Knight Shieldbearer. Now, as you have never seen this card before, Shieldbearer has 2 effects. One that we're gonna sort of like gloss over here, and it's that Shieldbearer has an effect that if it's normal or special summon, you can banish 1 Lightning monster from the graveyard to draw a card. Now, the effect we care the most about is the second one here. Let's say you can banish this card from your hand or field, add 1 level 6 or lower Wind Beast monster from your deck to your hand. And we do happen to have a Beast Wind monster that is level 6 or lower, and we want to add to our hand. So this is basically a small optimization over playing 3 Rampengu. Now, why is that the case? The reason behind this is that one important caveat here: people are not playing Draw and Lock right now, so we can get away with doing this. But Shieldbearer is a card that banishes itself as a cost, and as it does so, when you banish Shieldbearer, you already have a card banished for the Nemesis package. So you have a Corridor or Flag in hand that you might need to use as an extender at one point. You already have a card you can return to the deck for that effect. Not to mention that Shieldbearer also thin out our deck. So if you have a Post-Prosperity in hand, for example, you can use Shieldbearer first, take out a Rampengu from the deck, and now you have less chances of drawing a Rampengu. Another Rampengu, and you have more chances of drawing a different card like a Tamer. So yeah, it's just a small optimization for the deck. You know, you have to take all the advantage you can while playing the deck, and I think this is going to be optimization. It's going to catch up and people are going to start utilizing. Now, Shieldbearer here, and this is very, very important, consider this Shieldbearer in your ratios as another Rampengu. So if you are siding out, it will be very tempting to remove this card because it doesn't say Ritual Beast in the deck, but in the name, but don't. If you wouldn't side out a Rampengu, don't side out Shieldbearer. This is effectively just another Rampengu in the deck. Last thing with Shieldbearer is that, as you notice, we're gonna gloss over it, but the first effect, when it's normal special summon, you will think it will come up by allowing us to banish Spirit of Beast Merlara from our graveyard, but it actually doesn't come up. It haven't come up even once for me. So, but it's sort of like the hidden effect of the card, you know, if you wanna call it. So, TLDR, this is basically another copy of Rampengu, just that it's slightly better, just because it gives us it in the deck and also gives us materials for the Nemesis package right away. So, a small optimization to keep in mind. Next card we have here is very straightforward. It's a Spirit of Beast Merlara. Basically the best card of the deck. Lara and any other Ritual Beast monster is a full combo, including Lara and Iteli. So Lara is simply really good card. If you want a further explanation, you can go to my previous video, but it's very straightforward. We want to play a playset of Laras. Now next here we have our package of the next 5 Ritual Beast monsters here, and these are basically combo extenders and combo requirements for the deck. We have Sapelio, we have Winda, we have Wen, Lara, and we play Zephrapilica. Now if you want an explanation of why we play these cards, especially Zephrapilica, that's included in my previous video. We go into detail and go into detail into why Zephrapilica is so important for the deck. TLDR, Zephrapilica is important for the deck because a lot of the combos that you will go through that are 2-card starters will need Zephrapilica to work. And not only that, is also a really good card when turn 3 comes around to have in the deck as an extender to search from your ulti-cannahawk searches. So Zephrapilica in the deck because of those reasons, and the rest of cards in here are cards that we need mid combo in order to go ahead and assemble a pretty good board. And also are, like I mentioned before, with Lara or with Iteli can be one of 2 cards from a 2-card starter. So now one card you will notice is not here is Petelfin. Go over detail onto why we're not playing Petelfin in a previous video, but the short version of it is that we're basically sacrificing Petelfin in the name of consistency. And I go over this in a little more detail at the end of this deck profile, and we'll go over it and give a better explanation of why that's the case. But that's basically somebody has to get close to the team, and Petelfin got the shorter straw, if you want to call it. So let's continue. Now the next card we have, and I feel this card is so important for the deck, is that we're playing a places of Itelis. Iteli is currently a 2 in the OCG and is a 3 for us in the TCG, and this is a huge difference for the deck. The reason behind that is because Iteli, with any other Ritual Beast card in the deck, any other Ritual Beast monster in the deck I should say, is a 2-card combo. And not only that, Iteli is the quintessential extender for the deck. It's the 1-2 extender that the deck has. If you think about it, you also have Spirit of Beast Merlara, but she requires you to already have a monster to normal summon with her in hand. So Iteli is extremely important for the deck. And I would say definitely you want to play a playset of it. Best extender in the deck is one part of 2-card starters. And sometimes you can even do a little of like fancy stuff with it, like summoning Spirit of Beast Merlara from the deck to dodge some effect, or I should say to protect your monsters from destruction. So definitely want to play a playset of Itelis. Now we get to the probably what's gonna be the most replayed part of the video, and is the Nemesis cards. We're playing Nemesis Flag and Nemesis Corridor. Now why we are playing these 2 cards? Now this part is very interesting. I would say the most interesting part about Flag and Corridor is that I personally actually evaluated this card wrong in the past. The reason behind that is because when evaluating a card, you have to look at the card from all the angles, all the merits the card can have. And I personally only tested these two cards while going first. I tested without an opponent, just seeing what board I could put together. And the boards were really strong, but I didn't notice that these cards were also useful going second and to break boards. Let me tell you more about that. So, Nemeses, Flag, and Corridor are really good as an extender because if you get stuck at any moment in the combo, you're able to summon one of them and search for the other one, and that will give you another body on the field. Not to mention that Flag, and we're playing Infernal Flame Banshee. Flag with Banshee will give you a total of, well, it's 2 bodies, but it's lane 3 value. So you have, in this case, an SP, and you will also have a Banshee on the field. And that's very useful because that's already 3 bodies, lane 3 value, I should say. And those 2 can go into Unicorn, and Unicorn can go into Access to another monster, and then you have a lot of tools at your disposal to break boards there. So Flag and Corridor are extremely good in the deck. Now, all cards has to be evaluated into which cards are replacing, no? And this is a very important point here. These 2 do not modify the ratios that we have for our Ritual Beast monsters. These modify the ratios we have for our defensive cards. And one thing that, and I'm gonna go over this at the end of the deck profile, but one thing that you have to consider when playing these 2 cards is that this is what you're playing instead of hand traps, instead of defensive cards. And that's how they have to be evaluated. We're still playing our consistency cards, we're still playing our core engine, that's not changing. We're playing these 2 instead of defensive cards. So in this case, and this can give you a hint of what hand traps I'm actually playing, these 2 are more likely being replacements for 2 effect veilers in the deck. Now, we're sacrificing a little bit of our ability to interact with our opponent or interrupt our opponent when they're going first for extenders. And so far, at least for me, the experiment is working. So we're basically saying that we have a better, or I should say, we have a easier time or more likely to succeed in breaking an opponent board with extenders that we are making our opponent board a little bit weaker with something like Veiler. So that's the exchange we're making with playing these 2 cards, and that's the magnitude in which they should be evaluated. Now, Flag and Corridor has values in 3 different categories, like I mentioned. One, for the starting board, they actually allow you to perform, your starting board is going to be stronger, which is not the reason why we want to play them, at least not the main reason we want to play them. That's nice and all, but if that was the only thing they do for the deck, I wouldn't play them, honestly. But number 2 is that when you get interrupted, you are still able to perform a good amount of your combo and set up a pretty good board. And number 3 is that when you are breaking boards, they can come quite in handy in the ability to climb into a higher link rating monster. And sort of like bonus, I guess, or extra, is that they also provide you with some recursion in the deck. Now, since we're playing, you notice in my last deck list, and in this one we're playing 2 ulti-cannahawks, sometimes you go over both ulti-cannahawks and you end up in this like situation where you would like to search again, but you don't want to summon your last ulti-cannahawk into the field with no way to actually put it back into the extra deck. Well, Corridor and Flag are able to solve that. So you will notice in the extra deck we change some ratios based on their ability to put monsters back. So that's basically why we have Flag and Corridor in the deck. Now there is one more card, and people often, you can see deck profiles playing with this package, and that is Arch Nemesis Protoss. And I'm gonna cover this card towards the end of this deck profile. So there will be a link in the timeline. I will specify where I speak about Protoss. Alright, so we went over our combo starters, we went over our combo extenders slash engine requirements, we went over our extenders. Now let's go over our consistency cards. We're gonna start with 2 inheritance. Now inheritance is a card that is very interesting, and I find myself divided between 2 inheritance and a whole playset of inheritance. The reason behind that is that inheritance helps the deck become more consistent, sorry. And inheritance also, I'm noticing now that has another ability that is very, very unexplored, at least in what, you know, we think about playing the deck through interruptions and playing the deck through the opponent's interactions. And it's inheritance ability to put a Ritual Beast monster in the graveyard. And I find that inheritance is like one card that have one main effect, that is to, you know, add a Ritual Beast monster to your hand. It has like 3 tiny effects that come into play here and there that amount to something that we have to explore further. Is those 3 effects: the ability to reduce the monster's attacks, the ability to put a monster in the graveyard, and the ability to change a monster battle position when the 2 monsters are coming back from the fusion, are very, very important. And are things that normally are not thought about when you think about this card. And I'm noticing more and more as I playtest that they do come up here and there, and they do help you to do things like playing through interruptions or breaking opponent board. So inheritance, very interesting card. I will definitely play at least one of them. I'm liking 2 right now. I might put a third one, I'm not sure. I'm very in defense about it. So just consider that when I'm evaluating this card. Now the next card we have here for consistency, and this card is so important for the deck, is Pot of Prosperity. Pot of Prosperity, I find it very interesting because, especially now more than ever with this version of the deck, the extra deck space is very, very tight. But Pot of Prosperity is the one card that you will notice if you remove from the deck, you start breaking way, way more with the deck. And it provides the deck consistency that it needs, and I'm very, very glad we have a whole 3 prosperities in the TCG, and not in the TCG where it's only at 1. So very, very important card for the deck, and I feel it gives the deck the boost of consistency that it needs, so it's consistent enough to perform at a higher level. Now next we have our defensive cards and hand traps. And here we have 3 Dimension Shifter. Very little to say about Shifter, just basically the best hand trap of the format. If you can play it, you should play it, and we definitely can play it in this deck. Now, one thing to mention with Shifter really quick is that, especially for this version of the deck with the Nemesis package, playing Shifter is really good, but gosh, mastering playing this deck with Shifter and mastering playing this deck with the flag Nemesis package is very, very, the skill ceiling for this deck is extremely high, to a point that actually includes some self-expression. I'm gonna talk about a little bit more about that towards the end of the video, but I find Shifter really good card, definitely wanna place it. Next, hand traps, and this is just the 2 best hand traps for choice. I'm playing Ash Blossoms and I'm playing Impermanence here. So not much to say here, you just want to pick the 6 best defensive cards of the format, and I think right now these are those 6. Now the last 4 cards that we have in the deck is one sort of like engine requirement or card that we need to search in the deck, and that is Ritual Beast Steeds. Very straightforward, we want to include 1 Steeds. Now if you want me to talk about including maybe 2 Steeds, I go over that in my previous video. Now, Book of Eclipse is the best defensive card for the deck right now, at least that's the way I feel about it. Book of Eclipse, I really like it, and you will notice from my previous video, I'm very big fan of when cards are just live in your hand, that are not specifically for going first or specifically for going second. Book has the versatility for both. Going first, Book of Eclipse help us dodge hand traps like Impermanent and Unveiler, and also protect against Nibiru. And we have to remember for Book of Eclipse, we can contact fuse with the monsters face down. So it's a very important thing to remember. And apart from that, Book of Eclipse going second help us deal with the board just by putting the monsters face down. Or 2, it helps by just baiting a negate. So if you're playing something like against Voiceless, you can put the Skull Guardian face down and they're forced to activate the Omni Negate, no? Not to mention the Book of Eclipse seems to have some good matchups here and there, like against Tempai, you can just wait until the battle phase. Book of Eclipse, the monsters, they cannot attack, and they cannot synchro with them. So Book of Eclipse, a very, very good defensive card right now. But these 12 cards here, just in generally speaking, these 12 cards are gonna be depending on the format. Like right now, I feel Ash and Impermanent are the 2 best hand traps in the deck, in the format. And obviously, you know, Shifter is Shifter. And I feel Book of Eclipse is the best defensive card for this particular deck. So I'm really liking these 12 cards for now. Now, one thing I will mention is if there is anything that will change in here, right now, I'm very, very likely to change. And this is an important change because we're modifying ratios if we do this, is to change one Book of Eclipse for the tier inheritance. So that's the one change I keep thinking I might make, I might not. But apart from that, everything else seems, at least in my opinion, is very, very close, if not at the final ratios that we want to play. Alright, so one last thing I want to mention before we move on is that you will notice there are some cards that I didn't cover here, like Ritual Beast Bones, and the second one, Steeds. Again, those cards are in my other video, the link will be in the description. And there is, I believe, 4 cards that were in the previous video that are not on this one. And there will be a playset of Super Police and 1 card by the grave. Why are those cards not in the deck anymore? Well, to put it simply, I found out, or I feel that the Book of Eclipse is providing more value than the Super Poly for the deck, and I think it's better into the format currently, especially with Tempai in the format. So that's the first reason. The second one, with Card by the Grave, is similar to what I mentioned before. The defensive card that we have and the hand traps defensive card that we have, we are evaluating those against the Nemesis package. And since we're playing the Nemesis cards, we're basically saying we feel that extending our combos with the Nemesis package is more valuable or conducive to a win than playing these cards that are defensive. And that's basically the reason behind that. Now let's go over the extra deck. Now the extra deck is something that keeps getting tighter and tighter as we go exploring further versions of the deck. Now let's cover the extra deck. Now the extra deck is something that gets tighter and tighter as we keep progressing into newer versions of the deck. Now we're gonna start. You will notice some different ratios here, and some cards are included in the extra decks because we play the Nemesis package. But for the most part, we are basically having the same concepts here. And again, the explanation for some of these ratios is in my previous video. The link is gonna be in the description below. Two ulti-cannahawks here. Just not much to be said. You need one. Often you will need one if you're starting a combo with Rampengu, like Elder Rampengu will need to banish one, and you need the other one to fuse to, no? So, two ulti-cannahawks. Two ulti-noches is something I mentioned before. You want to play as many ulti-noches as you think you will have turns in the duel. And most of the duels are resolved or already has a defined winner by turn 3 or turn 4. So, we play two ulti-noches because of that. Now we come over the first change that we have for our extra decks, and it will be that we were playing 2 Kimul Falcon, now we're playing 1 Kimul Falcon. Now why 1 Kimul Falcon? You will notice some ratios change here for our cards, no? Now we're playing 3 Book of Eclipse, so we have, we're playing beforehand 3 Super Polis, and now we have 3 Book of Eclipse, so we have 2 spots open in the extra deck, but those spots are taken by the Nemeses package. And a little bit of a spoiler, we're playing Infernal Flame Banshee, and we are playing, we're also playing Colossus. So those two spots are taken by that. So who is taking ulti-cannahawk spots? Well, ulti-cannahawk spot is being taken by Appaloosa. The reason for that is that in this version, you will end up in a board. Quite often your end board will contain a link to monsters and will contain IP. And you need something to go with those two. Especially if you don't have cards in hand to go into Tsunami Unicorn and use the effect, no? So that's basically the reason behind it. For our end boards, we need the Appaloosa more often than not. And that's covered in the second Cannahawk. Now, with losing the second ulti-cannahawk, we are losing some of our ability for the deck to be versatile when starting with combos that involve Rampengu. So you will often now banish an ulti Gaiapelio or your ulti Rerotari with the Rampengu combo. This is getting to be very, very risky when you're performing those combos. And we'll go over that towards the end of the video. But basically, we are banishing these monsters and we are using the Nemeses package, the Nemesis cards, to bring them back into the extra decks to summon them back. And that's basically why we can get away with this. So that's the main reason why we are playing one ulti-cannahawk here. And as you can see, we're also playing one ulti Gaiapelio and one ulti Rerotari. I still find a lot of value with having these two cards in here, especially ulti Ray. If you want to know why I'm playing one ulti Ray and maybe not two ulti Ray, that's in a previous video. And there is a better explanation of why these cards are in here in my previous video too. Now the next card we have here is Anima. Now Anima is a card that is here mainly because it is a good defensive card that allows to pull Lara in the graveyard and still, combined with a different body on the field, go into SP for an effect right away. So these two will help us together to break boards. And so Anima is mainly here for that reason. If you want a more in-depth explanation of why Anima is here, again, I feel I sound like a broken record, but in my previous video I mentioned more about why we are playing this card. But basically, very important defensive card. We want to use a Lara in the field to go into it, and the Lara in the grave, and the Lara now in the grave, can help us go into Nochi, and there we have an SP Nut right away, SP Little Nut right away. So very important line of play we want to have for going second. So now next card we have in here is SP. Now SP is a very, very important card for the deck, because now more than ever it has three applications. One, it has a defensive application. Obviously, SP effect is really good in your opponent's turn, banishing something and after using the effect to banish potentially herself, or banishing something else is extremely useful. Two, obviously, it also has the protection effect that when you have SP in the field, you're gonna get Nip or something of that sort. You're able to banish her and banish something else and bring them both back. And three, SP has the value that she's able to work also as a way to break boards. So SP, like I was mentioning with Anima on a different card, we go into SP and that's another banish right there. And if your opponent tries to interact with it, it can banish again, no? So SP is a really, really good card on all those aspects. Now, there is a 4 or additional bonus used for SP in this version of the deck, and it's that SP is part of a lot of combo lines that use the Nemeses package. And I will go into more detail on how that is towards the end of the video. But basically the way things work is that SP is able to banish Infernal Flame Banshee from the graveyard when flag is still on the field, and the way the Banshee comes back into the field, SP plus that Banshee, that's a link rating 3 value right there. Now a question I get often asked is, what do I play if I don't have SP? And I'll be honest with you, there is not a single card you can put in the extra deck to replace SP. But if we think about SP's role in the deck, we can try to cover for as many of those functions as we can. So SP is a part of the end board pieces, no? It's a card that is very good defensively. So what we can do for that is that we can play Appaloosa for that. So Appaloosa can cover the defensive role that the card have, and speed is also good getting rid of threats on the board. So for the offensive role, we could play War Dragon Cialantis. So in sort of like in a different way, we're replacing SP for a couple of cards that cover the roles that SPs have in the deck in different ways. So that's the best way to go about replacing SP that I have found. Now if you're planning to go for this version of the deck without SP, there is another YouTuber called Moonlight that has a video where he plays Cialantis on his Ritual Beast deck. You can see how this card interact with different cards in the deck and how interact in particular with Ulti Ray to get 2 pops when you are trying to OTK your opponent. So Cialantis, a really good card to keep in mind if you wanna replace SP, at least in theory. It seems to me like the best option to go about doing this. So now after we go with SP, we also have IP. And IP, very little to explain here, really good onboard piece. If you want to know explanation about IP, I put that in my previous video too. But basically IP is just gonna be an onboard piece that we have to go into Appaloosa or Nightmare Unicorn during our opponent's turn. And IP also helps us a lot with the Nightmare Unicorn here. So we also play Nightmare Unicorn. I put an explanation for this one in my previous videos. We're still playing this and Access Code to break boards. Basically, these two are gonna help us a lot going second, and I speak about them extensively in my previous video. Now I mentioned Appaloosa earlier when I was talking about Ultimate Falco, and that's basically the reason behind playing Appaloosa. It's an onboard piece that we can go for when we have 2 Link 2 monsters in the field. And that is basically the gist of it. We play Appaloosa because it's a really good onboard piece for those situations, and those situations come up basically every match or every other match. Now the last 2 cards in here are part of our Nemeses package. We have Infernal Flame Banshee and we have Thunder Dragon Colossus. Now for these 2, it's way easier to explain how they work with the deck through a demonstration. So we're gonna go at the end of the video through a combo in which I'm gonna showcase how these 2 are involved with the deck now. Now Infernal Flame Banshee, really good card. It search to the hand. Funny enough, you can search Apelio, but 99% of the time it's gonna be searching Flag. Flag is gonna go through the Nemesis combo, and towards the end of the combo, we're gonna have the opportunity to summon Colossus with a Corridor or a Cannahawk that we have in the field. Both of them are Thunder monsters. So that's basically why these 2 cards are in here, and we're gonna cover them more in detail in a little bit when we go over a combo. Now, if you wanna know about other cards I could have put on in this list, I covered them in my previous video. So you can go there, you can see what I think about Underworld Goddess, you can see what I think about Cialantis, just like a generic card in the extra deck, not to replace SP. And all those cards. So link again in the description below if you are interested in that video. Now, for the next part here, let's cover our side deck. And again, this is gonna change format to format. And I feel, for the most part, I feel very confident about most of the cards in here. Obviously, these are gonna change format to format, and this is gonna change format to format. Everything else in here that you see in the screen probably will stay more or less the same through formats, and depending on obviously if we get more cards that interact better with the deck or not. So, all right. So for the side deck, we have 3 Nibs. Just really solid hand trap right now, and I feel it's not very good against some matchups. You know, you have the Tenpai matchups. The fire deck seems to play around it pretty well still, so it's not in the main deck because of that, but just in general really good hand trap to have in this side deck for those particular matchups that it wins. Dimensional Barrier, similar to Nibiru, just win matchups here. Just very useful and side deck piece to have against Tenpai, against Voiceless, against Branded. All those matchups that you go first, you draw that card, is very handy to just basically win the match by itself. Next we have a place of Cosmic Cyclones, just very important to have in this format. You want to make sure you have that barrel removal, so if you go first or even going second against a deck like Tempa, you are able to get rid of the field spell. If you are able to, if you're playing against Voice Rage, you can get rid of the barrier. And you have implications here and there between other matchups, not to mention that obviously you need something that can help you against a stun, and Cosmic Cycle is there for that too. Next we have two Phantasmes. Phantasme, I talked about this card in the past couple of times. Just really good card to have for those matchups in which you are going second against a deck like Fire, against a deck that put Lynx monsters on the field. You basically fix your hand. That can help you a lot because it can get you to those extra extenders. It can get you to the emergency teleports. It can get you to those ladders that you need to be able to play through your opponent's board. Now this card is the card I feel sort of like the worst about the side deck, and it's two Diffusers. And I'm not sure about the Diffusers in this position because it's just going first. I find that I'm not needing it, and I basically don't have another good side deck card to think about right now. I'm very sure about these 11 cards right here, but these two Diffusers I'm still kinda in defense about. I find they're useful. I need to test them more, to be honest, to figure out if they're actually worth including in the deck or not. And the last two cards, you are very familiar with them. We talked about it in length in my previous video. Gargoyle Cowboy, you just need something that will help you win in time, very important. And the last one here is Link Spider. Link Spider is for Nibiru in particular. If we see Nibiru in main decks, Link Spider has to start making its way to the main deck, and I know we talk about that. Link Spider and Relinquish Anima are gonna be switching places back and forth depending if we're gonna go second or if Nibiru is a card that is seen playing a lot of main decks in the format. So this is basically what we have in the deck. If you wanna get more detailed explanation of the side deck and see other alternatives I have considered in the past, you can watch my previous deck lists. But this is basically what I feel right now is the best for the current format. Now, just going over everything again, we have the deck list, the main deck I should say. We have our combo starters, 1 or 2 cards. We have our combo extenders and engine requirements. We have our extenders. We have our consistency pieces. We have our hand traps and defensive pieces. We have our extra decks. We have our core pieces of the deck. We have some pieces that will help us break boards and end board pieces. And the Nemeses package cards. And we have our side deck right here, going first and going second cards that we want to introduce into the deck. Now, what do I see changing in the future? What do I still feel could change in the future? I feel this pile of cards in here is gonna remain constant. I don't think we're gonna end up touching anything in here. I'm feeling very confident about that. I'm feeling confident about Shieldbearer being the deck. Well, as long as we don't have Droll as a main threat in the deck, no? In the format, I should say. I'm very confident this card will stay like this. Maybe one point to explore in here is to include another Rampengu in the deck. That's something I still have to test more to know if we want to play 4 Rampengus or 3 Rampengus is fine. And by the way, with Shieldbearer in the deck, we can play up to 10 Rampengus. Because we could play 3 Shieldbearer, 3 Rampengus, 1 Reinforcement, and 3 of the Noble Knight Chalice. So we could go a little crazy with the amount of Rampengus in the deck, but I feel 3 right now is the correct number. That might change in the future. So that's number 1 point contention there. Number 2 is I feel these cards are going to be fine. I don't think anything's going to change here. I think this pile in here is going to change a lot. I feel these cards are going to be format dependent. And right now we're just going to put the 12 best cards that we consider the 12 best defensive cards for the deck basically. As far as the extra deck goes, I feel most of these ratios are going to remain the same. What could change here is Relinquish Anima could be replaced by a different card. Not sure if that would be Link Spider or a different card. That one could be replaced. And Orapalooza could be replaced by Underworld Goddess if we find that Goddess has more value. Apart from that, everything else in here I feel it has earned a spot in the deck, at least for the current variation of the deck that we're playing. As far as the side deck, this is gonna all change depending on the format. I do feel that you want to have a card that win in time. And I think Gaga Cowboy is the best card, especially now we're playing the Nemesis package. We can summon Corridor from hand and has a easier time making a rank 4. I feel Cowboy is very important. And Link Spider is just, Nibiru is a card that we have to respect in one way or another, and this is our way to respect it coming from the side, coming in from the side. Now I'm not gonna make another 3-hour combo video for the deck. Need to keep my sanity, whatever I have left of it, intact somehow. But I'm gonna show you how you can modify the combos to actually include the Nemesis package on them. Now, all this, and this is a name you will hear me mention a lot from this point forward in the video. A lot of these ideas come from a different YouTuber named Shu. I'm gonna put his channel somewhere in the screen right now, and his link in the description. He does really good work with this specific build of the deck, and you should definitely go and check his videos when you're done with this one. So a lot of this is inspired by his work, and we're gonna be starting here his work on the stuff that we saw from Lost also a couple of weeks ago in my other video. Well, let's get started with El Clasico Elder Cannahawk combo. We normal summon Elder, normal summon Cannahawk. Using Cannahawk effect, we're gonna banish a copy of Spiritual Beast Temerlara. We're not gonna use her effect. Instead, we're gonna use our Elder and Cannahawk to special summon or ulti-cannahawk. Now, using ulti-cannahawk effect here, we're gonna be targeting our Elder and targeting our Lara. We're gonna change the effect to the fuse. Targeting our Elder and targeting our Cannahawk. Lara goes into the graveyard, and we're gonna search to our hand a copy of Gwen. We're gonna use Cannahawk effect once more, this time to banish a Rampengu. And now we're in the perfect situation with Gwen in hand and Rampengu banish to normal summon a Ritual Beast monster. So we're gonna use our Cannahawk and Elder for a copy of ulti-cannahawk. And we're gonna use ulti-cannahawk effect, and this part is important. We're gonna be targeting or banishing, I should say, or Ritual Beast Tamer Lara. Banishing Lara and normal summoning Gwen give us two trigger effects that activate simultaneously. We're gonna make Lara Chainlink 1 to play around as Blossom, and Gwen Chainlink 2 to special summon Rampengu. The chain resolve backwards, Rampengu is summoned into the field, and Lara is gonna special summon Winda from our deck. Now we can use Rampengu effect here, and since we don't have two Kimufalcus in the extra deck, we're gonna be banishing instead a copy of Ulti Gaia Pele. Now we're gonna be recovering this resource later on in the combo to send to our graveyard a copy of Lara. Now this part can wait, but I like to do it right away, is to use Lara and Cannahawk in the grave for a copy of Ulti Nocho Dragon. Now with Ulti Nocho in the field, now we happen to have two level 4 monsters. And this part, the combo till now probably looks very familiar if you have been playing the deck for a while. Now we're gonna go into the Nemesis part of the combo. And the key for all the Nemesis part of the combo, at least most of them I should say, is Winda. The important thing about Winda is that she's a tamer that is a level 4 monster. So you will often be diffusing into two monsters, Winda and Spiritual Beast monsters, and then you can go and overlay for your Infernal Flame Banshee. And that's what we're gonna do just now, using Winda and Rampengu to go into Infernal Flame Banshee. Now using Banshee effect, we're gonna be adding a Pyro to our hand, in this case our Nemesis flag. Now with flag in hand, and this is how you will recover resources. we wanna use flag effect here to special summon itself by returning our Ulti Gaiapelio back into the extra deck. So Ulti Gaiapelio goes back into the extra deck to normal summon, or to special summon I should say, or Nemesis flag. Now we can use our Infernal Flame Banshee and our Ulti Nocho Dragon to go into an SP Little Knight. Using a speed effect here, we want to banish our Infernal Flame Banshee, and when Infernal Flame Banshee is banished and we happen to have a Pyro in the field, she summons herself back into the field. And now we can use our Ulti Falco. Oops. I almost forget, we use our Nemesis flag effect to add Nemesis Corridor to the hand. And now we can use our Ulti Falco, Nemesis flag, and Infernal Flame Banshee to go into our Ulti Ray Rautari. Now with Ulti Ray effect, we can add Cannahawk back to the hand. And then we can normal summon Cannahawk. Now important point here, Wen has not been special summoned yet. So we can use Cannahawk effect to banish Apelio from our deck. And now we can fuse using our Cannahawk and our Wen into our ulti-cannahawk. Using ulti-cannahawk effect here, I'm gonna be targeting my Apelio. I'm gonna be targeting my Cannahawk. I'm gonna change the effect to the fuse, targeting Wen and targeting Apelio. These two are special summon into the field. Cannahawk goes into the graveyard, and we search our deck. We could search it. We're gonna end up searching 3 times. The first search I like it to be for Ritual Beast Steeds. Now with Apelio in the field here, we're gonna use this effect, and the important part of here is to do not banish Ulti Falco. Instead, we're gonna end up banishing our Ulti Nocho Dragon. The reason behind this is that we're gonna end up using that Ulti Nochi, returning it back into the extra deck. We recover our resources, like I was mentioning earlier, to summon our Nemesis Corridor. And now we can fuse once more, this time using our Wen and our Apelio, to go back into our ulti-cannahawk, and using ulti-cannahawk effect, I like to leave Apelio banished, so we're going to be targeting our Wen and targeting a Lara. We're going to change the effect to the fuse, targeting both Laras, which are summoned into the field, and when it comes to the graveyard, to allow us to add to our hand a copy of Lara. Now we can use both Laras once more for ulti-cannahawk. Now we can use ulti-cannahawk effect, returning both Laras to the graveyard to add Lara to the hand. And here we start fabricating the end board that we're gonna end up with. We can use Nemesis Corridor for a Thunder Dragon Colossus. And here we can use our Lara effect in hand to normal summon Lara. And we can use Lara effect to special summon or Kimu Falco. At this point we can use our ulti-cannahawk and our Lara as materials to go for our IP Masquerena. And these are the pieces we have for the endboard. And this is why I call this endboard 2-2-2 because you will have 2 disruptions with the Steeds. You have 2 banishes with Ulti Ray and Spiritual Knight. And these 2 monsters can go into 2 negates Appaloosa. Alright, one thing I want to cover here at the end of the combo is that this might seem very complex at the time, and I understand if it's a little intimidating. You know, we went through so many steps just for this single combo, no? But one thing that I always keep in mind, and this is something I mentioned in my tutorial again and again, is that when thinking about these decks, you cannot think about the level of mastery right away. You're gonna be going through a different process, and if you go through my tutorial, I actually explain step by step how to get to a level that you can start doing stuff like this. But when you start playing the deck for the first time, you're gonna start thinking about the plays differently, and that line of thought will help you figure out combos like this without having to memorize every single steps of the combo on your way there. So I just want to mention that really quick. Has a tutorial, I'm gonna put in the description below. But don't feel like you have to do stuff like this day one, you know, with the deck. It's gonna be a little difficult to think about it, that way. Alright, let's go with El Clasico 2 Elder Rampengu combo here. You wanna normal summon Elder, normal summon Rampengu, use Rampengu effect, and priority number 1, put some safeguard for our combos in the graveyard. Remember, we're not playing ulti-cannahawk, so we're gonna banish ulti-Gaia instead to put our Spiritual Beast Tamer Lara on circulation. Elder and Rampengu get them banished to special summon or ulti-cannahawk. Ulti-cannahawk effect, wanna be targeting ulti-Gaia and Elder. I wanna change the effect to the fuse, targeting our Elder and targeting our Rampengu. As ulti-Gaia touch the graveyard, we search to our hand a copy of Lara. Different from before, this combo line actually search for Lara to the hand. So to keep in mind, earlier, you know, if you start with Cannahawk, search when. You start with Rampengu, search Lara. Okay, very important thing to remember. And by the way, if you want more tips how to remember and learn these combos, in the combo video that I made, I go over a lot of small pointers that you can follow to actually make it easier for you to learn this combo lines. One of those pointers actually is something that's coming into play right now. That is that we're gonna use Rampengu effect to send a monster into a graveyard. Now, one important factor of this combo is that we do not want to summon Noshi early. It's a very, very important difference between this and the previous combo, the Elder Cannahawk combo. So here, instead of that, as Cannahawk is sent to the graveyard, we're gonna use our Rampengu and our Elder. Again, we're gonna go into ulti-cannahawk, and now we're gonna use ulti-cannahawk effect. Again, we're gonna banish our Lara, so we can chain block her effect. So we summon Lara, and chaining one Lara, chaining two OG Lara to special summon Cannahawk. The new Lara will resolve by a special summon into the field, copy of Winda. Now with Cannahawk effect here, we're able to banish another copy of Lara. Now with both Lara's banished, we happen to have two level 4 monsters on the field, and we can overlay them to go into our Infernal Flame Banshee. An important step here, with Infernal Flame Banshee, we want to detach the Cannahawk. Before, you remember we detached Winda, now we're detaching Cannahawk. This will come to be relevant in just a minute. With Infernal Flame Banshee, we'll first add to our hand a copy of Nemeses Flag. Now with Nemeses Flag in hand, we wanna use this effect to put our ulti-cannahawk back into the extra deck and special summon it. Now with Nemesis Flag effect, we wanna add to our hand a Nemesis Corridor. And now is where the Cannahawk in the graveyard become relevant, because we wanna banish Cannahawk and banish Elder to special summon a copy of Ulti No Show Dragon. Now all this should look familiar here, as we're gonna use our Infernal Flame Banshee and our Ulti Noshi to special summon our SP Little Knight. Now we can use SP effect to banish our Infernal Flame Banshee, and since we control a Pyro, we can special summon Banshee back into the field. Now we can use Link 2, Flame Banshee or Flag, and our Infernal Flame Banshee to special summon our Ulti Ray Raudari. Now with Ulti Ray on the field, we can use this effect to add Cannahawk to the hand and normal summon Cannahawk. As a normal summon Cannahawk, I'm gonna use this effect to banish a copy of Apelio. And here we're gonna go again, get 3 searches. Remember, Lara was normal summon, she has not been special summon yet. I can use my Lara and I can use Cannahawk. And through all this, we're holding Corridor in hand because we want to get value back as much as we can here. So, we want to special summon our ulti-cannahawk. Use ulti-cannahawk effect here. We want to be targeting, in this case, it might be a good idea to target our Elder to put it back in the graveyard. So we want to use ulti-cannahawk effect, targeting our Elder and targeting our Lara. Or in this case, actually, yeah, our Elder and Lara sounds pretty good, I think. And we want to change the effect to the fuse, targeting our Apelium and targeting our Lara. This to our summon into the field, our Elder goes into the graveyard, and as it does so, we add a copy of Steeds to our hand. Now we can use a Apelio effect, and at this moment, we want to get the full value by banishing our Ulti-Gaia Apelio. So if we wanted to end with Ulti-Gaia Apelio, that's another way that we can do it. Although at this moment, we probably have to use our Ulti-Rerotari to end Ulti-Gaia Apelio, so it might not be the best idea. Alright, and now we have our Apelio and our Lara on board. We can use them both one more time for our ulti-cannahawk. Remember, we put the other ulti-cannahawk in the extra, so we have two of them. And we can use ulti-cannahawk effect here. And we have the Laras that haven't been special summoned yet. So in this case, we can target our regular Cannahawk and one Lara. I want to change the effect to the fuse. So special summon both Laras into the field. We can go into the graveyard. We want to search our deck, this time for a copy of Zephyrapilica. And we're following exactly the same process that we did before. Now, one thing we can do here is that if we want to get a full value of our Ulti-Gaia Apelio, we want to put it back into the extra deck to summon our Nemesis Corridor. Or we can use Nemesis Corridor, we can wait to do this, or we can do it right away to go into our Thunder Dragon Colossus. We can use our two monsters on board to special summon or ulti-cannahawk, and we can use ulti-cannahawk effect here, putting both for Lara back into the graveyard to add to our hand a copy of Lara. Now we can use Lara effect in hand to normal summon Zephyrapilica and Zephyrapilica effect to a special summon or ulti-Kimul Falcon. These are basically the same pieces that we have for the Embor. Now, one thing that's interesting here is that we could actually, in the opponent's turn, we can divide this Kimul Falcon into two different monsters here. So one thing we can do here is that we can use our ulti-cannahawk and use our Zephyrapilica to summon our IP. And we have again, and remember in the end phase, Ulti-Kimul Falcon will be destroyed if we wouldn't banish one of our three Laras. So we probably wanna do that in the end phase. But we have basically these pieces for the Embor. So remember the 2-2-2 I mentioned earlier, this one is a little bit better. So we have Ulti-Ray and Speed Little Knight for two banishes. We have two pops, or I should say three, because we can defuse in the opponent's turn, or four I should say, sorry. I guess we don't have to play for 4, we will have to do a different line of play to be able to banish a Lara with a Apelio, but you get the gist of it. So we can use here, if we wanted, we could even do a Apelio. Let's say we use a Spirit tonight at one moment in the combo. We could use a Apelio effect to banish a Lara. This could summon one from the deck to put her in circulation if we wanted. Or if we have our Ritual Beast monsters, we could do that. And then we can steed for 4 and also do, and this is not something we have to do, but we could use all our materials on board to go into a 4 materials Appaloosa. So we get, in theory, a pot 4, a banish 2, 4 negates plus Colossus. So it's very strong boards, not to mention that we still have Lara protection in the graveyard for our Ritual Beast monsters. Alright, so now let's say you are playing against a Tenpai deck that you know is a Tenpai deck, or you are playing against an opponent in game 2 or game 3 where you are going first, and you know your opponent will very likely have Nibiru on the deck. How do we play around Nibiru? And by the way, this is a extract. It's just a small portion of how you play against Nibiru. I would like to give a lot of credit to Chu, and actually when I do these lines in a stream, I call them the Chu lines, because he came out with a really good video explaining all we play around Nibiru. And I'm gonna put that video in the description below, and please go and see his channel. He does the Elder Rampengu line there, which is very similar to this one. And he also have other options. There is 3 cards hands that also play against Nibiru that doesn't have to be Elder Cannahawk, Elder Rampengu. So a lot of value on his videos there. But for this, just to showcase the power of the Nemeses package with all these cards, let's get started with this combo. So, alright, so let's get started by normal summoning Elder, normal summoning Cannahawk. I'm gonna use Cannahawk effect here to manage, similar to before, or Spiritual Beast Lara. With Lara Vanish, we wanna use our Elder and our Cannahawk. You will notice all this beginning part looks a little bit familiar. It's exactly the same as the combos we were showing earlier as El Clasico. We wanna use ulti-cannahawk effect here, targeting Lara and Elder, and we wanna change the effect to the fuse, targeting our Cannahawk and targeting our Elder. Now we're gonna start diverging the routes here, because the card that we're gonna be searching from our deck, instead of when, it's gonna be Lara, and things are gonna look a little bit weird. So I need you to bear with me for a minute here. We're gonna get to a place where we play around Nibiru and we put a Gunboard. But we have to go through some a little rare steps here. So now we're gonna use Cannahawk effect here, and we're gonna end up banishing a copy of Steeds. Yeah, Steeds. And now we're gonna use our Elder and our Cannahawk for our ulti-cannahawk. The next part is, I should remember earlier, and this is a good way to remember these combos, I guess. We were banishing Lara to summon Cannahawk. Now we're gonna be banishing Cannahawk to summon Lara. So when we play around Nibiru, we summon Lara, banish Cannahawk. When we don't play around Nibiru, we summon the, I guess I should say, the Spiritual Beast monster, because they could also be in a different line. Is it's gonna be a Rampengu. And we banish the Lara. So just something to keep in mind. But in this case, since we're playing around Nibiru, using Cannahawk effect, banishing our Cannahawk, summon our Lara, special summon our Spiritual Beast Lara, and the main objective to play around Nibiru is that you wanna reach a monster that can deal with Nibiru without using Lara effect and without summoning Ultinocho Dragon. That's the main objective we have in mind. So that's what we're gonna be striving for. Not using Ultinochi and not using Lara effect to be able to play through Nibiru here. So yeah, so we're gonna be using our Lara, or 2 Laras I should say, and Cannahawk here. And we have 2 options, 2 different routes we can take. I would say path A will be to go ulti-cannahawk. For ulti-cannahawk, we will need to have, I feel comfortable summoning ulti-cannahawk if we have 2 or more Ritual Beast cards in hand. So let's say you open 4 Ritual Beast cards, you go Elder, Cannahawk, and you have, I don't know, Tevrapilica, and you play Petelfin, maybe Petelfin, or another copy of Elder or something like that. Then ulti-cannahawk can convert those 2 bricks into actual combo, actual Embor pieces, I should say. So yeah, so we have ulti-cannahawk, but if we don't have those monsters in hand, we have Appaloosa. And we're gonna go over both lines. The big difference, obviously, is that with ulti-cannahawk, which is the line we're gonna pick first, the monsters are actually banished. So the Cannahawk, the 2 Laras will be banished. Cannahawk goes into the field. Lara activates her effect to special summon. I'm gonna be special summoning a copy of Rampengu here. I'm gonna use Rampengu effect. And with Rampengu effect, we are gonna be, and this might look a little weird for a minute, but we're gonna be banishing Ray. The reason why we need to banish Ray is because we wanna get wind and circulation, but as you see our psychics, the 3 psychics that we have, Kimufalco is banished, Gaepel is in the field, so the only option we have left will be Ray Rautari. So banishing Ray, send to the graveyard or Winda. And now we have a Tamer and a Spiritual Beast monster in grave. Banish them both to go into our Ulti No-Show Dragon. With Ulti No-Show in the field, we can use his effect to defuse into our Ulti-Kimufalco, and we can use Ulti-Kimufalco effect to defuse. And here we can go into, remember Lara hasn't been a special summon yet, and with the hasn't been a special summon yet, we can go into Lara and Winda. Summon them both back into the field. Now we have Winda and Rampengu. As I mentioned earlier, Winda is the key to unlock the ability to summon or Nemesis package. So now we have 2 level 4 monsters on the field. We can overlay them and go for Infernal Flame Banshee. And we're gonna use Banshee effect. And to hand a Pyro, in this case Nemesis Flag. I'm gonna use Nemesis Flag here, and we're gonna put Ray Rotary back into the extra deck so we can summon it back later in the combo. And as Flag hit the field, we can use this effect to add Corridor to the hand. And we can use our Banshee, and we can use our Lara as lead materials for SP Little Knight. Now, part that I don't like about this combo is that it does mean to sacrifice the SP Little Knight during the combo line. But yeah, we're gonna be using SP here to banish for Infernal Flame Banshee and getting her back since we have a Pyro. And now we have 1, 2, 3 monsters that equal a Link 4. And we're gonna add, we call a special summon, I should say, or Ulti Ray Rautari. Now with Ulti Ray in the field, we can use Ulti Ray effect to add a Stitch to the hand. And now the only thing we have left is to summon our Corridor. And here I value more having the Lara in circulation than the Elder. So I say we put Elder back into the deck, summon Corridor. And this Corridor can now go into a Thunder Dragon Colossus. So considering we will have 2 Ritual Beast cards in hand, we will have a Ritual Beast Steed to destroy 2 negates, and 1 banish, and with Colossus on board. So it's a pretty good board and still play around Nibiru. Alright, let's see how the combo line varies once we get Appaloosa involved in all this. So we're gonna start with Elder, we're gonna go Cannahawk, and Cannahawk effect here, importantly, is gonna be banishing or Rampengu. She's sort of like a blast from the past. You follow my channel, so that we used to do before we found a more optimal, more defensive combo. But yeah, we're gonna be banishing Rampengu first. Now we're gonna go Elder Cannahawk for our ulti-cannahawk. You see ulti-cannahawk effect here, we're gonna target our Cannahawk and targeting our Elder, and we're gonna change the effect to the fuse, targeting our Rampengu and targeting Elder. I'm gonna search our deck once more for our Spiritual or Ritual Beast Lara. We're gonna use Rampengu effect here to banish. It's important to banish this card in here. Or Ulti Ray Rotary, and the reason we're banishing Ulti Ray is because we're gonna end up bringing it back later with our Nemesis package. So banish that, we send Lara into the graveyard. Now this combo plays around Nibiru, but it has some points of interactions that can get into risk, and this is one of them. So now we have Elder and Rampengu on the field. We can use them both for our ulti-Kimufalco. Now Now we're taking Falcon board. Remember what I mentioned earlier. We're doing Lara into Cannahawk. Now we're gonna end up Steel of Cannahawk is gonna be banished, and we're gonna normal summon our Lara to a special summon our Lara. We're doing exactly the same thing. Just now Rampengu was in circulation to help us get the Lara into the graveyard earlier. So now we can use our Kimu Falcon, our Lara, and our other Lara. Remember, Rito Vistemer Lara was not a special summon yet. To go into our Appaloosa. Now we can use our Lara effect. Now we can use our Nochi to banish Lara and banish our other Lara. Special summon Ulti-Nochi, and since Lara was banished, we want to special summon from our deck a copy of Apelio. Now with Apelio effect, we want to banish Kimu Falcon, and now that Kimu Falcon is banished, we want to return our Ulti-Nochi into the extra deck to summon Kimu Falcon, and we want to return Kimu Falcon into the extra deck to summon Lara and to summon Kana. At this moment, we can use our Cannahawk, and similar to the previous line, we're not looking for value for the fusion here, we're looking for access to steeds. So we're gonna be banishing our steeds. And now we happen to have 2 level 4 monsters, so we're gonna use them both for our Infernal Flame Banshee. And we're banishing the field. We can detach one material, and this is something interesting here, is that we could detach Cannahawk and has another Thunder in the graveyard for, you wanna call it Colossus secret ability that is to be protected by having Thunders in the grave. Or we could go for Apelio, and that will give us better resources later on, no? If we are able to reach a moment where we can defuse, no? I personally like to do the Cannahawk here. So let's go ahead and follow that line stop. And with Banshee effect, we're gonna add Nemesis flag to our hand. Now for Nemesis flag, we're gonna return Ulti Ray Rotar into the extra deck, summon the flag using flag effect. We're gonna add Corridor to the hand. And now we're gonna use our Banshee and our Lara to go into our SP Little Knight. Using SP effect here, we're gonna banish our Infernal Flame Banshee to special summon our Infernal Flame Banshee. And now we're gonna have a 2, a 1, 1. And we're gonna be able to summon our Ulti Ray Rautari. Now with Ulti Ray, we're gonna add Steeds to hand. And with Nemesis Corridor in hand, we're gonna put back our Spiritual Beast Lara to summon Corridor, use Corridor effect, summon Colossus with this effect, and we end up in this board where we have Steeds, Ulti Ray, a 3 material Appaloosa, and Thunder Dragon Colossus on the field. Now, last but not least, what about Sidedeck Patterns? This is something I get asked questions here and there about. Normally what I will do is that we leave these cards alone, and normally I won't touch anything in here. And if I really have to, remove one Elder from the deck. What about here? Well, for these cards, the main change I will do is that if I am going second, you're gonna really have more consistency in the deck just because you're gonna have 6 cards. You know, that 33% goes up to 38%. Of drawing the card that is a 3 of, no? So with that percentage increases of being more consistent, we can get away with removing consistency tools from the deck. It can be Prosperity or to Inheritance. Now, one thing with Inheritance is that I mentioned this before, this card is unexplored, I feel we need to consider more Inheritance for the value that it has of sending a Ritual Beast monster to the graveyard. So we might want to leave an inheritance in. I need to explore more. I need to explore more the idea. But at least for now, the Sidedeck pattern I'm following is that removing 2 inheritance and 1 prosperity quite often when I'm going second. Now, apart from that, these 12 cards are just gonna flat out change for whatever is better than them in the side deck. So, Book of Eclipse, we gone out for Cosmic Cyclones, or we gone out for the barriers if it's better in the format for that. If it's better in the matchup, sorry for that. Impermanence, we gone out quite often when I'm going first. I will take Impermanence out and put something like the barrier in, put something like Dimensional Fissure in. Something that is just better in that situation. So these 12 cards in here, you know, Shifter is not good in that matchup. Maybe you put Cosmic Cyclone in, maybe you put Nibiru in, and so on, no? So that's something to consider about these 12 cards in here. Now if we continue with the side deck patterns, we have Link Spider here and Gaga Cowboy. What we take out? Well, the first candidate here to come out of the deck is gonna always be Anima. Anima is the first candidate to come out of the deck. The second one here, especially if you are going second, you're not going first, is Appaloosa. I very rarely summon Appaloosa going second. Now, that's for going second, no? Why if we're going first? If we're going first, the first candidate to come out of the deck is Nightmare Unicorn here. Apart from Anima, obviously. So these two are the main candidates. So that's basically how you will find the space for your Link Spider and your Gaga Cowboy. Now, one thing I forgot to mention in my previous video is what do we do with Prosperity? How we play this card in this deck? Well, Prosperity, we're always 100% of the time, well, I shouldn't say always, 99.9% of the time, we want a Prosperity for 3. The reason behind that is that Prosperity is just, for us, it's just like an Upstart Goblin in steroids. That's basically the use that it has in the deck. Prosperity equals draw 3 cards, get the best one of the 3 to your hand. So what do we get rid of? Well, I often will get rid of, if I'm going first, I often has candidates that has in mind. It could be Nightmare Unicorn, it could be Gaia Pelio, it could be the second Noshi, or it could be Appaloosa and Relinquish Anima. So these are basically the candidates that I have when I'm thinking about what going first or going second with Post Prosperity. If I'm going first, I will definitely, and this card will come out more often than not, if I know I'm not gonna summon Anima going second, I will also take it out. So Anima is gonna come out. If I'm going first, very likely I'm gonna take out my Nightmare Unicorn. And I'm gonna also take out one of these 3 cards, and this is where the question gets to be a little more difficult. If you think with your current hand, you will be able to go into Gaia Pelio, you take out, you won't be able to go into Gaia Pelio, sorry. You take out the Gaia Pelio and those are all 3 cards, no? If you think you will go through Gaia Pelio, like if you has a lot of Ritual Beast cards in hand, and Gaia Pelio proves to be a really good line of play, I will take out the Appaloosa. Now, in very difficult situations, I will take out the Noshi, the second Noshi. But this card, I won't take it out too often. It's just it has to be a situation where I feel I need the other cards in the extra deck, no? Now, let's say instead of going first, we're going second. So for going second, if I has a line that already make Anima, I'm gonna keep the Anima in. If not, Anima is gonna be coming out. Apart from that, it's gonna be, unless I feel I need Appaloosa to break the board, Appaloosa is gonna be coming out. And the last one will be one of these 3 monsters. It will often be, I will often leave the Nightmare Unicorn in, just because if I'm going second, I need to break a board somehow, no? So Unicorn is gonna help with that. But it's gonna be Gaia Pelio or the Noshi. If I notice my hand cannot play Gaia Pelio properly, so if I don't have too many Ritual Beast cards in hand, I will get rid of the Gaia Pelio. If I notice I'm gonna be summoning ulti-cannahawk in order to break the board, maybe the opponent has an Omni Negate, I need to play around it, and ulti-cannahawk is the way to go, I will get rid of this second Noshi. Now, a risky proposal with getting rid of the second Noshi is that then you are at the mercy of being able to play with only your board, no? Like if you break your opponent's board, you attack, the game's going to extend past turn 3. When turn 4 comes around, you have no way to banish ritual-based monster from your graveyard. You're gonna have to play whatever you have in the field and in your hand. So it's a dangerous proposal, but it's something you have to do sometimes. So that's basically the patterns I follow for Pod of Prosperity. So one thing I want to do before moving on is to talk about the deck consistency and the build that we currently have for the deck in that aspect. Now, an issue we have with the Ritual Beast deck is that you will be playing deck cards, basically. If you think about all the cards in here, none of these cards does anything by itself. None of these are one-card starters, none of these are defensive cards by themselves. They basically don't do anything in the deck if you don't already have a way to play. Now, this number of cards in the deck can get to be very dangerous, and you're gonna start noticing you start breaking way more the more of these cards that you include. That's part of the reason why I'm currently not playing. That's the main reason, I should say, why I'm currently not playing Petelfin and Protoss. So we have to make choices on these cards, and you can think of these cards, and a way that you can think about it is that your chances of drawing one of these cards, if you think about it, basically increase by more or less around 10% for each card, and this is going first. So if you play 3 cards, your chances are around 33%. If you play 7 cards, they are around 71%. So, and that's the thing with these numbers, is at this point, with the amount of cards of this nature we have, we're basically saying we are gonna draw one of these cards in our starting hand, and we're gonna be okay with that. Now, sometimes we can get lucky and draw something like a Winda with an inheritance, and then we're good because we can discard the Winda to the graveyard, get something better to the hand, maybe a Rampengu to fix our hand, has a 2-card starter, Winda's engraved for extension, perfect, no? So that's something to consider when you are planning the decklist and iterating on this decklist. You may changes, keep this in mind, and this is something, it might be very tempting, because these cards are very powerful. You read Protoss and it's definitely a custom card that should be banned. And you read Petelfin and definitely you find situations where you're like, shoot, if I have Petelfin, I could banish this, and that would be very useful, no? But I find that it's dangerous to play that game when you are trying to keep a deck as consistent as possible. So right now, I have 8 cards in here, which give me, I believe, close to around 80% chances of drawing one of them in my starting hand, which you know is very high. I will be drawing it at 3 out of 4 matches going first. So I don't want to increase that more if that's possible. So that's the reason why Protoss is not in the deck, why the reason Petelfin is not in the deck. But we can make concessions with that, no? Maybe you feel that Petelfin is better than Sephra-Pilica. You include Petelfin, take out Sephra-Pilica, you keep your ratios intact, no? So it's just something to keep in mind for the ratios. You want to make sure you keep the deck consistent, and this is a way to do it. Alright, so why do we play 40 cards? Why we don't want to play 41, 42, why we don't want to go over? The reason behind that is because we want to see the extenders that we have in the deck, these 6 cards, in our hand as much as possible. The reason behind that is that in the modern format, you know, playing more Yu-Gi-Oh!, you're gonna have a lot of decks that has hand traps, and you're gonna need those extenders in hand. So you will often start with something like ulti-cannahawk, get hand trap, and you will need an Iteli in order to extend. You will need a Lara in hand to normal summon maybe a Lara, an OG Lara, to special summon something from the grave. You will need those effects to be in place to be able to extend your combo. So that's basically the reason why we want to play 40 and don't go over 40. If there was a way for us to search Lara, like, well, apart from obviously inheritance, there was another way for us to search Lara that would be a reason for us to maybe consider playing more than 40 cards. Or if there was another card that helped the deck to the same extent that Lara helps the deck. So it's something to remember when you're playing the deck, when you're making your deck. This is the reason we want to play 40. Right, before we go, I want to mention two different interesting interactions that I noticed with the deck. And one of these was brought to my attention by Swisky, and I noticed one of 2 videos he actually does this. And the other one is something that I just thought about the other day. The first one is with Forbidden Droplet. Now, when the opponent activates Forbidden Droplet, Droplet has a very interesting effect here. As you see our board here right now, what we're working with is basically a typical board that we have when we play around Nibiru, no? And something interesting about Droplet is that, if I can get my camera to focus, there we go. You can say any number of cards and choose that many monsters, and you notice that sending the cards from your hand or field to the graveyard is the actual cost of the card activation. Very important. And the next line is the vital one here. Choose that many effect monsters your opponent control. Now, with that in mind, one thing that we could do is that, let's say our opponent Forbidden Droplet, and we have this field, no? So I'm gonna discard 3 cards into the graveyard, and they're gonna discard a monster, and maybe they're gonna discard a spell, no? Because Forbidden Droplet has to choose that many monsters, one thing you can do is that you can actually use Ritual Beast Steeds and just get rid of the negate that you don't want to utilize. So they discarded 3 cards. So let's say we get rid of maybe Colossus is not the best in the matchup, maybe Appaloosa is not that good in the matchup. Whichever of the two we want to get rid of. And we get rid of the monsters, send it to the graveyard with Steeds. And now Forbidden Droplet will not finish resolving, will not negate the Appaloosa, will not negate the Galapelio. The reason behind that is that it has to choose that many monsters on the field on the resolution of the effect in order for it to resolve. If it doesn't have that many monsters in your opponent's field to resolve, it will not. So something very, very important to keep in mind when you play against Droplet. Now, the next card I want to mention here is Spellbound, and I know this card was in the format like a year ago and haven't come back with it. If it come back one day, something we can keep in mind, because it has a very interesting interaction with all Ritual Beast monsters. So this reads, all face-up monsters your opponent current control cannot be tributed or used as materials, and the important first one there is for fusion, synchro, exceed, or links, no? So we have that this will prevent us from using those monsters for a fusion summon. So let's say we normal summon Elder, we normal summon Cannahawk, our opponent flips Spellbounds, and now we can banish both them to a special summon or ulti-cannahawk. Now the reason we can do that, we can do the same thing for ulti-notion dragon, by the way, is that ulti-cannahawk and all the Ritual Beast ulti monsters, the clause that it has at the very beginning of the text, there we go, is that must be a special summon from your extra deck by banishing the board cards you control and cannot be special summon by other ways. At no point is this considered a fusion summon. And that's very important. So this is a special summon from the extra deck by fulfilling the requirements to summon the monster, and it's properly summoned, so we can, well, this one has the restriction, no? But with something like Kimu Falco, we could bring it back, no? Or the Rotary, we could bring it back. So that's something very interesting. So this Spellbound reads that it prevents the monsters to be used from a fusion summon, but it does not prevent them from being used for a special summon of a monster. So this actually, we circumvent Spellbound very easily with our fusion monsters. While evaluating Protoss, I personally don't feel it's a good card to have. This will sound very counterintuitive, but I don't feel it's a good card that we need going first. It's a card that can be very useful going second. And now, if we put Protoss in the deck, obviously going second, we have more consistency, and we're able to put Protoss in. Hopefully, if we draw it, it's not a big of a deal, and we're able to make things work with it, no? With Protoss being in the deck, opens some avenues on the deck for different styles of plays. So let's say we happen to have Protoss in the deck. For example, we get the barrier. Now the barrier is normally a turn pass for the deck. It's something where we don't really have that many plays in the pure build of the deck. I mean, you can go into King of Falcon, hopefully climb into Rey Rotary or something like that and get some plays that way, but normally you will need extenders for that. You will need a really good hand for that, no? Now let's see what happens if we're only the barrier, under the barrier, and we have the Nemesis package. And this is just with the typical starter. So something like an ulti-cannahawk starter, no? Now sadly Rampengu here wouldn't work as Rampengu put the monster in the graveyard, and we cannot summon a fusion monster, so we have no way to banish that monster from the graveyard and get the values that we will otherwise. So let's say we have for ulti-cannahawk started, and this sadly won't work with Elder Rampengu. We can normal summon Elder, normal summon Cannahawk, do Cannahawk effect here, banish a copy of Spiritual Beast Temelara, and that way we can summon into the field a copy of Rampengu. By using Rampengu effect, we can put something in circulation here. By banishing ulti-cannahawk, we can put Winda into the graveyard. And we can use both for monsters, both for level 4 monsters, to go into an Infernal Flame Banshee. Now with Banshee, we can use her effect to search from our deck a copy of Nemesis Flag, put ulti-cannahawk back into extra deck, summon Flag, and use Flag effect, this time for Arch Nemesis Protoss. And we can do our Banshee and our Elder to go into an Spiritual Knight, and we can use SP to banish our Banshee. Then because we have a Pyro, special summon our Banshee. Now we have 2, 3, 4. And we can go into an Appaloosa. Now we happen to have a Dark, a Pyro, a Fire I should say, and also a Wind to banish for or our Nemesis Protoss. So that's basically a board that we can do under Dimensional Barrier. So there is value on playing some of these cards, and cards like Protoss, especially if you're playing second, you will notice that you reach situation where you are break the board halfway, and then you can summon Flag, and then search Protoss, and Protoss can finish winning the game from that point. So alright, so now let's talk a little bit about the future. In the coming weeks, the cards are going to be released, and this is why I feel the deck, the build that I showcased today might evolve to. Depending on how my testing goes in the coming weeks, and my discussions with Swisky, Moonlight, and everybody else I can find to speak with, speak about Ritual Beast. So this is what I'm playtesting currently, and where I feel the deck might go to. So 3 changes mainly. Number 1, we might remove the Nemesis Corridor on favor, and this is a little painful to say that because I know this card is very unfair. We might remove Nemesis Corridor on favor of Protoss. Now, why do we want to play Protoss? It's just the main reason that we want to play Protoss, and by the way, without Nemesis Corridor, obviously there will be no Colossus in the extra deck. So we want to be removing Colossus. Now, the main reason we might want to play Protoss is because we're still having issues getting rid of threats in our opponent's turn. Funny enough, Protoss is, sure, it's an extremely powerful Embor piece, but his purpose go beyond that, and it helps us go in second. I don't know if you recall Protoss effect, but it actually has the effect that it can actually destroy all monsters on the field with the attribute that you declare. And that's very, very useful. Without Protoss, there is not a clear way to OTK a full board, a full fire deck board without having extenders in hand. We only having like a, without having something that's not engine, sorry. So with engine, this card make it possible to OTK that, and there is a, if you're curious about that, there is a video by Shu that you can see. I'm gonna make sure to put links to his channel in the description below. But basically Protoss does that for us. Protoss help us clear threats, and this is something that the deck needs as much help as possible. That's the same reason why we're playing Nami Unicorn, the same reason why we're playing Access Coding here. If we need to get rid of threats, it's a reason why Anima is here. Protoss will do that for the deck. Not to mention, it's just a really good Embor piece, no? So yeah, we might include Protoss, and I'm currently testing it out by removing the corridor, the Nemesis corridor, and remove the Colossus. Now, part of the reason why you remove the Colossus and the Nemesis corridor is that if you're thinking about an Embor piece, Nemesis flag has to search one of the two, no? It could search Protoss or it can search corridor. If you already have Protoss in the deck, you're not going to be searching corridor. If you're not searching corridor, you are not using Colossus. So that's change number 1. Now, change number 2 is that we want to think more about consistency, and this would be modifying the ratios of the deck. So it would be adding 1 more inheritance and removing 1 Book of Eclipse. That's the other change I have in mind for the deck, at least from what I'm gonna playtest in the coming weeks. So it's gonna be the other change I'm gonna be playtesting. Now the last change will be about covering that spot that is left by Colossus. Right now I cannot think of a good card to cover that spot. Obviously we could put back another Kimufalco, but right now I'm noticing as long as we have flag in the deck, we kinda have enough flexibility with the extra deck, then we can get away with having 1 Kimufalco. So I think a card I wanna playtest there, a card that might be in the cards, I guess I should say, for the future of the deck, is a second Ulti-Ray Rotary. Now why a second Ulti-Ray? This is not exactly because of Rampengu, but the main reason behind the second Ulti-Ray Rotary is because of Winda. You will often have times where you're playing and you're not able to go full combo. You end up with a weaker board, and your opponent comes to the opponent's turn and they try to break your board, and you're able to do one of two things, or you have an Apelio to banish a Lara to special summon Winda from the deck, or you have a Winda banish that can be diffused and special summon into the field. And often when Winda come back, you don't get the full value of that monster coming back, no? Because there is nothing that, none of these monsters, none of the Ritual Beast monsters are interruptions on their own, you know, and Gaia Pelio needs to be properly summoned to be able to do that. But Ulti-Ray is an interruption, and is able to banish a card your opponent has, so that's the big difference here. And that's why I'm considering this second Ulti-Ray Rotary. It's not so much because of Rampengu, it's mainly because of Winda. So that's something that I have to see how often come up, and see if that's something worth including because of that. So you think about the list, I guess this could be like the second deck list for the video. It could look something like this in just a couple of weeks, depending on how my experimentation goes. And I want to make sure to keep you guys posted on how that experiment is resolved through my Twitter account and also my streams. So yeah, so this is basically how the list could look like rather soon. Now, Other cards that I'm thinking about when I'm seeing a list like this, or the original list that we have. I'm thinking about Celantis, because right now we have to think about what we're trying to do with the deck, what problems we're trying to solve. We're noticing that the deck has issues clearing threats when trying to OTK. If you have a full fireboard, you're able to clear a lot of monsters, but at the end of the day, I mean, you get lucky with Anima, you can clear one monster that way. You can use SP if you're not planning to OTK, but if you want to OTK your opponent, you basically, unless you have the luck with Anima, that monster is in the proper location, you only have Unicorn, and you only have access code. So that an access code will be 2 pops. So 2 pops and 1 bounce. And that's sometimes not enough to clear a full board. So what you can end up doing quite often is that you will end up doing all this, and you will use Protoss to clear the rest of the monsters, And that's one way to do it. But another alternative we might have is to use something like Celantis. Often the deck will OTK by having Ray and having access code on the field. That's 8,000. Well, with Apelio, that's 8,000. But Celantis allows us to do something similar. We can summon Celantis, and obviously this won't be an OTK with access code, but as long as we have another monster that can make the difference, that will do the job. But we can summon Celantis, and there's 2 pops there, so that is very useful. Now, another card that we have been considering is, for the same reason, Exciton Knight. I haven't even tested this, I just thought it would be good to mention it. Another one will be Hita. And with Hita, the main purpose is that you play the Inferno Flame Banshee and you play Nemesis Flag, and there is a lot of fire decks in the format, and everybody's playing Ash Blossom pretty much. So Hita will help us extend by grabbing the Ash Blossom, by grabbing the monster the opponent have, and with that we'll be able to get an extra body that we can utilize to climb into Ray or climb into Palooza, whatever we need at the moment. Another monster to consider here, and these two gonna go hand in hand, is Bagusta and Abyss Dweller. Whichever of the two is better for the format, this will be sort of like a plan B or plan Baguska. And this will be if you're playing Nemesis Corridor, you get a stop, you're able to do something like Cannahawk Effect, maybe you get Ash in Lara, and you are able to return the Lara into the deck to summon Corridor, and you can make 2/4 pass on a Baguska, which is alright. So apart from these two, the last card here that I'm sort of like considering, that's in my roadmap to test, is Underworld Goddess. And Underworld Goddess here will serve the purpose of a Palooza. As you watch my video playing against Lost OP, it actually, Underworld Goddess came once in that game and actually was able to put in a little bit of work. So yeah, so those are the cards I'm basically considering. If you want to think about a deck list to test right now, I would say something like this might be the way to move forward with. First of all, I want to thank you for watching, and as you can see, the deck list continues to evolve, and it seems like playing Protoss or Colossus might be the way to go about the future of the deck. Now, as I mentioned earlier in the video, all this evolution has come out of a community effort, not only from YouTubers, but also from Facebook and Discord groups, and just people very passionate about the deck, not to mention also people playing the deck in the OCG. A lot of hours have been dedicated to this deck, and I feel very, very proud of being part of this community, and also seeing how far the deck has come. And not only in the deck itself, but also the way to play the deck, the way to explain the deck, and the resources that are out there available for somebody that is starting to play the deck. Now, as the cards are just around the corner, way more people are going to start playing the deck and looking for information to play the deck. We're going to challenge ideas and preconceptions that we have about the deck, and the deck list is going to evolve and become better because of that. I'm really looking forward to see how we keep evolving the deck list, especially as new cards are released and new ban lists challenge the current status quo that we have in the format. Now, at least for now, the deck list I presented today seems to be like the deck list I'm feeling the most confident about. Now, if you want to keep an eye out of where the deck list goes, at least from my end, you can follow me on Twitter, and I post there every time I make sort of like a big change in the deck list. I post it there. And also on Twitter, you can find out when I'm doing my live streams. And those live streams happen at Twitch, and that's twitch.tv/edyo channel. So you can follow me on there to know when I'm going live. And also I post a video on my YouTube channel in here whenever I am live on Twitch. So I bring the video up when I'm going online, and I take the video offline when I'm going offline. And also I want to thank you one more time for watching the video. And if you find this content interesting, if you find it entertaining, I would really appreciate you like the video. And if you want more content like this one, I appreciate you subscribe to the channel. I'm gonna keep releasing content about the Ritual Beast deck for the coming months. I'm gonna also try to transition a little bit more into more generic Yu-Gi-Oh content, as that has a lot of topics in mind that could make for really good videos that I feel you might enjoy. Thank you so much for watching, and I will catch you up in the next live stream, if not in the next video.
All it takes is one bad day. That's how far the world is from where I am. Just one bad day. You had a bad day once, am I right? Oh, I know I am.